Living with the wrong person in old age is like locking yourself in an invisible cage, one where noise, tension, and daily contempt seep through every crack, stealing your breath. Many grow old like this, accompanied, yet lonelier than ever. Because it's not company that brings comfort, but the quality of that company. And as painful as it is to admit, there are people who need to be far from your life if you want to preserve your peace, your health, and your dignity. Old age isn't a time to endure, it's a time to choose. To choose wisely who you share your days, your silences, and your home with. In this video, I'm going to reveal the most toxic personalities you might be living with without even realizing it, and how that dynamic is stealing the most precious things you have left: your time and your inner peace. Stay until the end, because the final lesson might open your eyes in a way you won't be able to ignore. My name is Gabriel, and what you're about to hear could be the key that unlocks the most peaceful chapter of your life. Have you ever wondered why you feel so exhausted even though, in theory, you don't do as much as you used to? Why your days may be quieter, yet your mind lives in a silent storm? Maybe it's not about what you do, but who you do it with. Because there's something no one dares to say out loud, though deep down, you already know it. Some people don't just keep you company, they drain you. They don't just stay close, they cling to you like an invisible weight, keeping you from resting, thinking, and breathing freely. And the first type of person you need to recognize is the chronic, emotional dependent. Let me be clear. Living with someone who constantly needs your attention, your comfort, and your validation, yet never offers the same in return, is like trying to stay on your feet while carrying someone on your shoulders every single day. At first, you don't even notice. You might think you're doing something noble, helping someone in need. But over time, you realize that this so-called help has turned into a toxic routine where you no longer exist. Your silences stop mattering, your exhaustion becomes invisible, and your home ceases to be a refuge. It becomes an emotional triage center. I remember the story of Diane, a woman who wrote to me from San Antonio. She's 73, and after her husband passed away, her daughter, recently divorced and emotionally unstable, moved in with her. At first, Diane felt like God was giving her a mission. "She's my daughter, I can't leave her alone," she told me. But days went by, and what started as an act of support became an invisible prison. Every conversation revolved around her daughter's pain. Every moment of peace was shattered by a crisis, a complaint, a desperate call for drama. Diane wrote to me, "Gabriel, I feel like my home is full of noise. There's no space for me. Even my faith has gone quiet because I have no time to meet with God." And here comes the hardest part. Diane wasn't helping her daughter, she was feeding her dependence, and she was doing it at the cost of her own emotional and spiritual well-being. As Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." But how can you be the master of yourself when your time, your mind, and your energy are held hostage by someone else's emotional chaos? Look, helping someone through hard times is an act of love, but holding up someone who refuses to stand on their own is just prolonging their fall and dragging yourself down with them. The difference between compassion and emotional slavery lies in setting boundaries. And you, who have reached this stage with so much still to give, cannot let your life be consumed by trying to fill someone else's emptiness. Faith isn't about enduring everything. Faith is also knowing when to say, "This is as far as I go. I need space to pray, to rest, to live." Because if you don't, you'll slowly empty yourself out until you become just a shadow of who you once were. And that, my friend, is not living with love, it's living in submission. This is just the first step on this path, and if this already struck a chord, wait until you hear what's next. Because what's coming won't just open your eyes, it will make you rethink who truly deserves to be by your side in this deeply valuable stage of your life. If the first kind of relationship leaves you breathless, the second one takes the wheel. Because it's not enough for someone to drain you emotionally, some people also want to take over your life, shaping your days to their liking, as if you weren't capable of making your own decisions. We've reached the second key point in this video, the silent controllers. These people don't shout, don't command, don't impose themselves outright, but they manipulate subtly, disguising their control as help. They're the ones always telling you what you should eat, when you should sleep, what activities you should do, how you should spend your money, and they do it all with a smile, with that sweet voice that masks control as concern. The problem is, over time, they stop being a guide and become the rulers of your life. They won't let you make mistakes, make choices, or explore, because they've convinced you that without them, you'd be lost. In Stoic philosophy, autonomy is a sacred value. Marcus Aurelius understood this perfectly. He said that living according to nature meant living according to reason, to one's own soul. But when someone moves into your home or your life with the intent of directing your every move, what they're really doing is severing that connection between you and your essence. You no longer act from your own inner wisdom, you act from someone else's opinion, and that's where peace is lost. I know the story of Richard, a 69-year-old man who, after a serious surgery, invited his niece to stay with him for a few weeks to help during recovery. Weeks turned into months, and help turned into surveillance. Don't eat that. Don't wake up so early. Why go for a walk if you might fall? At first, Richard appreciated the company, but before long, he began to feel like a child under supervision. Every decision he tried to make was questioned. Every attempt at independence was discouraged. He told me something I'll never forget. "Gabriel, I healed physically, but my soul got sick. I stopped being the owner of my home." This type of control is especially damaging because it reaches the deepest part of you, your self-esteem. You start doubting yourself. You no longer trust your decisions. You feel the need to ask for approval, to get permission, to justify your choices. And that, my friend, is a slow form of death. Because what makes this stage of life so valuable is precisely the chance to live at your own pace, by your own values, on your own terms. If you've made it this far with everything you've lived through, why would you let someone else take the reins now? From a spiritual perspective, this is also an assault on the design God made when He created you, a person with free will, with discernment, with an inner voice meant to be heard. When you hand that voice over to someone else, you're dimming the divine spark that was given to guide you. And believe me, no love, no relationship justifies that kind of silence. Sometimes it's adult children using care as an excuse. Other times, a controlling partner or a family member who moves in just for a while. But the pattern is always the same. In the name of love, they reduce you. And if you don't set boundaries, no one else will do it for you. Seneca wrote, "The soul grows accustomed to slavery if it doesn't fight for its freedom. And that fight doesn't need to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes all it takes is a firm word, a calm decision, reclaiming your personal schedule. Sometimes it's about listening once again to that voice inside you, the one that still knows what you need. You're not here to be managed, you're here to lead your life. If someone close to you wants to take control of it, even if they do it with velvet gloves, they are an enemy of your freedom. And at this stage of life, you're not here to give that freedom away. You're here to protect it. Because freedom, at 60, 70, or beyond, isn't a luxury. It's a necessity of the soul. When someone takes control of your life, they leave you without space. But there's another form of violence, more subtle and sometimes even more painful. When someone doesn't respect what you believe in. We've reached the third point of this video, and this is where something inside you might begin to shift, if you're willing to look at it honestly. Because if you're living with someone who constantly disrespects your faith, mocks your spirituality, or treats your values like some outdated relic, then you're sharing your home with a silent enemy of your inner peace. The title of this chapter is Those Who Dismiss Your Faith or Beliefs, and I'll say it plainly. It doesn't matter how much love they claim to have for you. If someone makes fun of or belittles the very things that give your life meaning, they are slowly wearing away at your soul. Many of you grew up in homes where faith was a source of strength, where prayer wasn't superstition, but an act of humility, where lighting a candle or reading a passage from the Bible was as essential as having a meal. But now, you live with people who see all that as a waste of time, old-fashioned nonsense, or just something old people do. And if that doesn't hurt anymore, then maybe you've already gotten used to surrendering the most sacred thing you have, your connection to the eternal. Stoicism always upheld respect for the inner conscience. Epictetus said that each of us carries a fragment of the logos, a divine spark that guides us from within. But when you surround yourself with people who snuff out that spark day after day, denying you the right to live according to your beliefs, you start living only halfway. And the most dangerous part? You don't even realize it. You adapt to the silence. You stop talking about what matters to you. You hide your spirituality. You become someone who tolerates but no longer honors themselves. And with every act of self-denial, something in you dims. The strategy I offer today is simple. Speak your faith. Don't hide it. Don't ask for permission to believe. Talk about what sustains you. Pray even if someone frowns. Light your candle even if no one understands it. Your faith is not decoration. It's your foundation. When you claim it without shame, even through simple acts, you regain inner strength, dignity, and presence. It works because it reconnects you to the one thing that doesn't shake when everything else trembles. And that is vital in old age, to have something firm to hold on to as your body changes, as people leave, as uncertainty draws near. Picture a house standing through a storm. What keeps it up? Not the paint or decorations, but the foundation. Your faith, whatever it may be, serves that purpose. If you allow others to undermine it, you're left at the mercy of the wind. But if you reinforce it, if you live your spirituality openly, you become like a tree that won't break because its roots reach into the eternal. So if this message is striking a chord in you, if you feel like you've allowed others to silence your beliefs too many times, I invite you to affirm them today. Subscribe to the channel and hit like if you're reclaiming the strength to live with integrity. Tell me in the comments which country you're watching from, and write this phrase as a sign of your commitment to yourself. My faith doesn't hide. There are still powerful truths ahead, and the final lesson will be the most defining of all. Stay with me. What's coming next could change how you choose who to live with and how you choose to live. When you begin to speak clearly about what you believe in, when you dare to live from that faith that held you in silence for years, something within you begins to realign. But just as you're starting to reclaim your center, another threat appears. One that's even more disguised, more camouflaged as love and moral duty. Because it's not enough to be strong in your faith, you also need the courage to set boundaries with those who, out of convenience or boldness, have chosen to live off you. This fourth point in the video is one of the hardest to admit, but also one of the most liberating: those who live off your money or your home. The mental trap many fall into, especially after 55, is confusing help with submission, generosity with servitude, and love with resignation. You tell yourself things like, "They're my children, they have nowhere else to go, I can handle this," and little by little, you give up every corner of your space, your finances, and your routine, until you become the eternal safety net for adults who should be standing on their own. The worst part? You do it willingly at first. You feel it's your duty. But that idea, that quiet trap, sinks in so deeply that by the time you realize your home no longer feels like yours, your bank account is being emptied without your consent, and your days revolve around other people's needs. It feels too late to pull the brakes. I know a woman named Teresa who lives in Peru. She's 66, widowed for 5 years, and when her son lost his job, she welcomed him, his wife, and their young daughter into her home. She offered everything: shelter, food, even part of her pension to help them get on their feet. That was 3 years ago. Today, Teresa has no private space, eats at hours she doesn't choose, pays for most of the household expenses, and, perhaps worst of all, no longer feels like the owner of her own table. Every time she tries to talk about setting limits, they accuse her of being selfish, of not caring about her granddaughter, of forgetting everything they've done for her. And there's the trap. They've twisted her kindness into an eternal debt. These people aren't just living with you. They're living off you, slowly wearing down your independence, your peace, and your ability to make decisions. The damage isn't just financial, it's existential. Because eventually, you don't even know if you're the mother, the grandmother, the host, or the emotional maid in a family structure that's grown a little too comfortable with you doing it all. And the saddest part is, most of them aren't doing it out of malice. They've simply learned that you're always there, that you don't say no, that you always open the door and pull out your wallet. But your silence isn't a virtue, it's complicity, and your exhaustion, even if you don't say a word, is screaming. Stoic philosophy doesn't teach us to tolerate abuse, it teaches us to discern what's within our control and what isn't. And you do have control over your space, your resources, your dignity. If there's one thing this stage of life demands, it's clarity. Clarity to recognize when you're giving out of love and when you're being used. You're not here to financially support anyone, you're here to live in peace. And if someone needs to learn to stand on their own, let them do it now. Because if you fall tomorrow, that same person living off you today will be the first to say they can't take care of you. Don't confuse compassion with self-abandonment. Don't become the ATM or the emotional cushion for adults who've mistaken your generosity for a lifelong obligation. You still have time to reclaim what's yours, your home, your finances, your routine, your soul. And if setting boundaries hurts, remember this. Every time you give in out of fear, you teach others that you don't deserve respect. But when you speak with firmness, even if your voice shakes, you begin to heal. And that's what you need now, to heal, so you can live the rest of your life with dignity, not with chains. We've reached the 5th point in this video, and here we're going to touch on a wound many carry in silence, those who constantly criticize your past. The ones who, instead of seeing the wisdom you've gained over the years, choose to point out your mistakes, your choices, your darkest moments, as if the past were a sentence, not a lesson. And the problem isn't just what they say, but how they make you feel. Because with every critique, every hurtful phrase disguised as truth, they chip away at your self-esteem, making you feel like you no longer have the right to hold your head high or make decisions with confidence. Living with someone who constantly brings up what you did wrong, the job you didn't take, the marriage that failed, the money you lost, the decisions that didn't turn out as planned, is like living with a mirror that only shows your cracks. And the most devastating part is that, over time, you start to believe it. You stay quiet at family gatherings. You hesitate before sharing an idea. You censor yourself before speaking. You lose trust in your own judgment. And this doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow internal breakdown that turns you into a muted version of who you used to be. Constant criticism isn't correction, it's control. It's a way to keep you in debt, to undermine your authority, to keep you one step below. And if you don't stop it, it will eventually break your spirit. Because no one can build a dignified old age if every day they're forced to pay for the mistakes of a youth they can no longer change. As Marcus Aurelius said, each of us lives only in the present. All else is either past or uncertain. To keep punishing the past is to live outside of reality, to cling to a guilt that no longer transforms, only paralyzes. But you are not condemned. You can change this situation if you adopt a Stoic mindset, to understand that your worth doesn't lie in the perfection of your story, but in your ability to respond with virtue to who you are today. And that means speaking clearly, stopping the need to justify yourself, and standing firm in the belief that your past does not define your dignity. If someone in your life insists on treating you as if you are the sum of your mistakes, you have to ask yourself whether that person deserves your trust, your time, or a place in your home. This isn't about fighting, shouting, or making a scene. It's about reclaiming your voice, about raising your head and calmly saying, "I am not that mistake. I am the one who lived through it and learned." That disarms, that transforms, that's real inner strength. Because when you make peace with your story, no one else can use it against you, and then the respect you've lost begins to return. But it won't come from the mouths of those who judge you. It will come from your own, from the way you walk, the way you look, the way you live. And that is priceless, because once you learn to respect yourself, you set yourself free. And now, more than ever, you need that freedom. When you allow someone to use your past as a weapon against you, something inside you starts to dim. And if you do nothing, that flame still burning within you, that fire for dignity, for presence, for truth, eventually turns to ash. But the damage doesn't stop there. Because after you've been blamed, controlled, and used, another figure appears, one that seems harmless but wears you down like water carving stone. We've arrived at the sixth point in this video, those who play the victim to manipulate you. Think about it. How many times have you given in out of pity? How many times have you said yes to something you didn't want to do just because someone told you, "I have no one else. I don't know what I'd do without you," or "You're all I've got"? It sounds like love. It sounds like need. But it's another form of control, quieter, harder to detect, because it hides behind vulnerability. In truth, it's a tactic, because when someone makes you feel guilty for setting boundaries, they're not looking for your companionship, they're demanding your submission. Picture this. Imagine you're in a room that once brought you peace, a refuge. But now, every time you try to close the door and rest, someone slips in with their complaints, their drama, their long face. They don't ask you for anything directly. They just drop their sadness like stones, waiting for you to pick them up. And if you don't, they look at you like you're the reason they're unhappy. That's what it's like to live with someone who plays the victim. They don't yell, but they blame you with their silence. They don't demand, but they weigh you down with their sorrow. They don't impose, but they suffocate you with their presence. And you, who've lived long enough to know what it means to carry your own weight, are now carrying someone else's too. That's not what life should look like at this stage. You shouldn't have to justify every decision. You shouldn't feel that every time you do something for yourself, someone else suffers. You're not here to heal wounds you didn't cause, or to fill voids others refuse to face. You're here to live fully. And that fullness only comes when you stop feeling responsible for someone else's sadness. But the trap is subtle. It makes you believe that if you don't do what's expected of you, you're selfish, cold, ungrateful. That's where many fall again, because they want to be good, to be fair, to be helpful. But being good doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Being fair doesn't mean carrying what's not yours. Being helpful doesn't mean becoming the emotional lifeline of those who refuse to swim. And if you don't stop, if you don't look at this honestly, you'll find yourself years from now, exhausted, bitter, and full of a resentment you won't understand. It will be the resentment of having betrayed yourself again and again to keep someone else's world from falling apart, and then comes the distance, the loss of respect, because no one respects the person who always gives in. They just take advantage. You have to break the cycle, not from anger, but from clarity, from the deep understanding that your life matters, your space matters, your well-being matters, and if someone truly loves you, they won't use guilt as a tool. They'll say it clearly. I'm struggling, but it's not your job to carry me. If you don't hear that, then it's manipulation, and you don't deserve that. Because your later years are not a time to pay off other people's emotional debts. They are a time to live light, in peace, surrounded by people who know how to share, not demand. And if not now, when? No one's coming to rescue you from that pattern. Only you can give yourself permission to let go of that weight. Do it. For you. Because it's time. After carrying other people's sorrows, after letting others live off you, after enduring criticism dressed up as advice and silences that manipulate, you wear down. And that wear isn't just seen in your gray hair or your tired body, it shows in your eyes. Eyes that look dim, resigned, that have stopped expecting anything new because they've gotten used to living for others. But that's not why you're here. You're here to reclaim what's left of you. And that brings us to the 7th point of this video, those who ignore your physical or emotional limits. Some people don't yell, insult, or hit, but they drain you just the same, because they live as if you were an extension of their desires, as if your time, your energy, your presence were always available. They don't ask if you're able. They don't consider whether you're tired. They don't respect your need for silence. They live with the urgency of someone who never learned to be alone, and without realizing it, you become their constant resource. But you're not 20 anymore. And not because you have less energy, but because now that energy is worth more. Because every hour you have left carries a higher cost, your well-being. And living with someone who ignores that, who acts like you're still obligated to always be there, is a form of violence. Gentle, yes, but violence all the same, but violence all the... Here's the hard truth. How many times have you said yes out of fear of not being loved? How many times have you acted like you weren't tired, like it didn't hurt, like you didn't need a moment alone? How many times have you ignored your own body just to avoid bothering someone else? Every time you do that, you abandon yourself. And that self-abandonment isn't invisible. It builds up. It takes its toll. Because the body that isn't listened to breaks down. The mind that isn't respected burns out, and the soul that isn't cared for fades away. The transformation you're longing for doesn't come from a video or an inspiring phrase. It comes the day you get tired of giving in. The day you look in the mirror and say, "No more." You don't need anyone to validate you. You just need to make one decision. To start taking care of yourself with the same intensity you've always used to care for everyone else. Because no one's going to give you back the time you gave away without limits. No one's going to repair what you've neglected to handle everyone else's emergencies. That healing can only begin when you take responsibility for your choices, without guilt, without excuses, without lies. There is no transformation without accountability, and being accountable means saying enough when it's time. It means closing the door when your body needs rest. It means saying "not today" without having to explain yourself. Because your boundaries aren't whims. They're the line where your dignity begins. And if someone ignores them, what they're really ignoring is your right to exist in fullness. This is the final point, and the most personal, because it doesn't depend on what others do. It depends on what you choose to allow. If you've made it this far, it's because there's still a voice inside you whispering, "I want to live differently." Listen to it. Don't wait any longer. No one else is going to do it for you. The question now is simple. Are you going to keep letting others live how they want, in your home, in your body, in your mind? Or are you finally going to start living for you? The choice, as always, is yours. If you've truly understood what we've just talked about, then you know your boundaries aren't up for negotiation, and respecting them isn't selfish. It's a commitment to your own dignity. But there's still one more trap, one that many fail to recognize because it's disguised as routine, habit, or just how things are. We've reached the 8th point of this video, and it's time to talk about those who impose their pace of life on you. You might not notice it right away. These people seem energetic, always busy, always on the go. Their calendars are packed, their days overflowing. And without asking if that pace works for you or overwhelms you, they pull you along. In an effort to keep up, you follow. Suddenly, you're sleeping less, eating at odd hours, saying yes to commitments you don't care about, adjusting to plans that aren't yours. And the real danger isn't the physical exhaustion, it's the loss of direction. Because living at someone else's pace means giving up your own. And at this stage of life, that's a quiet form of self-destruction. Here's the action I'm asking you to take today. Pause. Take a day, even half a day, to listen to yourself. Not to others, not to check something off a list. Just to ask, what pace do I want for my life? Have you thought about that lately? Have you truly chosen it? Or did it just fall into your lap? Because if you don't choose it, someone else will. And when that happens, your days fill with things you never wanted to do, people you never meant to see, commitments you don't even remember agreeing to. You're moving fast but going nowhere. You're busy but empty. Now this pause only works if it's paired with a strong mindset. The mindset of someone who doesn't apologize for living differently, who doesn't ask for permission to slow down. Let me be clear, no one is going to give you space. If you're waiting for others to magically respect your time, to understand your needs without you demanding them, you'll be waiting forever. This kind of change only happens when you declare it. Through actions, through concrete decisions, through a presence that says, "I no longer chase the world, I walk by my truth." It's not easy. People will say you've changed, that you're distant, that you're not the same. But that's the price of reclaiming your direction. And believe me, that price is worth every step. Because when you wake up at your own hour, do the things you truly want, and stop running after someone else's momentum, a kind of peace shows up that can't be bargained with, a clarity that lets you say no without guilt, and a strength you didn't even know was still inside you. So if this feels like your story, if you've been living at someone else's pace, this is your moment to stop. Not tomorrow, today. Because every day you spend adjusting to someone else's rhythm is a day lost in building your own way of living. And if you don't build it, no one will. The rhythm of your life should be set by your soul, not by someone else's agenda. And it all starts with one word: enough. When you finally decide to stop, when you say enough to living by someone else's pace, you come face to face with something even harder, the emptiness that follows. Because once you remove what's artificial, imposed, or borrowed, you begin to see just how much space those things were taking up in your life, and how little of it was truly yours. That's when many fall back, because when silence arrives, so do the inner voices. Fear, doubt, excuses. And in that moment, some convince themselves it's better to return to what's familiar, even if it's painful. Which brings us to the 9th point in this video. Those who don't value your presence, only your usefulness. This might be the most subtle and most dangerous form of disregard, because on the surface, it doesn't look like mistreatment. There are no shouts, no harsh criticism, no constant demands. But there is a pattern you can't ignore. They're around you as long as you're useful. As long as you're cooking, lending money, doing favors, caring for someone, listening without end. But when it's your turn to speak, they go quiet. When you need something, they vanish. When you simply want to be, they're not there. And this is where many people over 55 lie to themselves. They say it's normal, that life is like this now, that times have changed. But deep down, they know they're being used, that they're no longer sought out for who they are, but for what they provide. And the saddest part is that some even cling to their usefulness as their last way of feeling valued, as if they only matter while they're needed. The most common excuse I hear, and I'm tired of hearing it, is this: well, at least they still include me. Include you for what? To handle what they don't want to deal with? To be the unpaid babysitter, the emotional nurse, the walking ATM? Is that really what your presence is worth? If you need to be useful just to feel worthy of being there, then you're already trapped, because the day you have nothing left to offer, you'll be cut out, and you know it. But here's an uncomfortable truth. The problem isn't just them. It's you too. Because you're the one who taught them they could count on you for everything. No limits, no conditions. You're the one who never demanded to be seen beyond your role. And if you don't change that now, you never will. There's no age limit on setting new terms. There's no age limit on teaching people how to treat you. Respect doesn't come with the years. It's upheld by your actions. And if you don't value your presence beyond what you can do for others, they won't either. It's no use continuing to justify them. They're busy. They've got their own problems. I don't want to be a bother. No, they know exactly what they're doing. And you know exactly what you're allowing. So stop lying to yourself. Your worth isn't in what you produce or what you give. Your worth is in your presence, your story, your ability to simply be without having to prove anything. If someone can't be with you without demanding something in return, that's not companionship. It's convenience, and you're not here for that. The shift happens the moment you decide to stop giving your time to people who only seek you out when it benefits them. When you're willing to be alone if needed, but whole. When you understand that you don't need to be useful to be loved, and that truth, painful as it may be, is what will restore your peace. Because only from there can you truly choose who to live with and who you'll never again allow into your space, your energy, or your silence. That is the freedom you deserve. Everything else? Just chains dressed up as love. And at this stage in your life, you're no longer here to live in chains. If you've made it this far, you're not running from the truth. You're facing it. And that makes you different. Not better, not wiser than anyone else, but braver. Because today, in a world obsessed with numbing pain and disguising dependency as love, you've had the courage to look directly at what so many prefer to ignore, that living with certain people can be a silent sentence. You're not in this stage of your life to keep enduring what wears you down. You're not here to tolerate relationships that drain you or to excuse what you already know is hurting you. You're here to choose, with all the strength your experience has given you, how you want to live and who truly deserves to be by your side. That choice isn't easy, it isn't popular, but it's yours, and it's time. To you, who stayed until the very last minute, I want to say something that's rarely said. Not everyone has the courage to listen to what hurts. Many stop the video before this point. Others watch it, but don't dare to look within. You did. And that already puts things in motion. That's why I want you to leave this phrase in the comments, along with your country. I no longer live to please. Write it with the quiet pride of someone who's waking up. Because this isn't just content, it's a conversation with your conscience. I'm Gabriel, and the Stoic Garden doesn't exist to entertain or sugarcoat your wounds. It exists to shake you, to invite you to think, to help you reclaim authority over your life, to reconnect with a voice you may not have used in a long time. This community isn't made of perfect people. It's made of people who are ready to stop lying to themselves. If that resonates with you, subscribe now. Not to add another number, but to join those who've chosen to live with truth. And share this video with someone you know needs it, even if it stings. Sometimes a firm message is worth more than 1,000 gentle hugs. This doesn't end here. What comes next might help you continue unraveling the invisible chains you've carried for years. Watch one of the 2 videos that will appear on the screen. More truths are waiting. More keys. And if you decide to stay, we'll keep walking this path together, step by step, toward a life that's freer, more dignified, more yours. See you soon.